Hey guys, welcome. I'm Daniel Norton, if you don't know that already, and you're on my channel. Today I'm going to try something a little different. Something that oops. There I am. I pressed the wrong button. Never do a live stream correctly. That's my, oh man, too crazy. Anyways, I'm Daniel Norton. Gonna try something a little different. I get, every Tuesday, I have one of my shorter videos goes live on Adorama, and I get a lot of comments, of course, and I try to answer them as best I can. And then also I usually get DMs and stuff about stuff, so I thought I would do. By the way, guys, I'm doing something a little different, so let me know. My audio looks like it might be peaking, but let me know if it's too loud. What I'm going to do is we'll see how I'm going to work out the schedule, if you guys enjoy it, and if it seems like it's worthwhile. I'm just going to take a few minutes to go through some of the comments that are there and kind of maybe address them in a longer and more detailed way than I would be able to just typing something, with a smiley face or whatever. So let me switch here so I can see you guys. Let's see. Hey, Jose. Chila. And Alvin. Welcome. All right, so let's take a peek. So this is probably going to be relatively short, so hopefully people will be able to jump in right away. Hold on, let me hit this so I can actually see it. There we go. I think we're working now. So many monitors. All right, so I'm going to share with you my screen here, and we're just going to take a look at the questions, and we'll go through them. I already answered some of them, of course, so I'll answer them again, of course. Alrighty, so this is the video. If you guys missed it, why use high-speed sync for portraits? So this is actually something that I talk to people a lot about. I get a lot of questions about, actually, because oh, why does it say thank you for watching there? Definitely screw that up. Oh, hey Michael. I have chocolate milk today, by the way. Sorry, I've been talking all day, so hopefully I don't lose my voice. I was planning on doing this earlier, but then I had a bunch of stuff to do, so plus I didn't want to miss a live stream again like I did the one time I put it up there, and So anyways, this is actually something really common, because I think high-speed sync is one of those things. I have a few videos coming up about high-speed sync, so get ready for that. That people they either use all the time, don't use it all, or maybe don't fully grasp why you would use it. So I was trying to kind of explain it as best I could in this studio environment, and the future video I'm going to do one outside, which is where I think you'll use it a lot more often. But essentially, when you're looking at high-speed sync, and some of these questions will relate to that as well. So the way that a shutter works in a camera, it moves across your frame, and basically any shutter speed above the sync speed is going to give you essentially not an even exposure of the flash across your frame. There's lots of graphics online that you can look at if you want to see exactly how that works. But basically, there's that moment that the shutter's open enough that it captures all the light. So certain things like leaf shutters don't have this issue as much. They can actually use a flash all the way to their maximum speed, and also you can be slower than the speed. So this is basically where you're at with the flash. This has been a thorn in the side of photographers forever, right? You're out in the field, you want to shoot something a certain way, it's too bright, you can't adjust your shutter speed up higher to use the flash. It can really be a problem. So, there's lots of things you can do. I think one of the questions mentioned ND filters, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's basically essentially three types of solutions here. One is high-speed sync. One is, somebody actually mentioned this, Hypersync, which we'll talk about as well. And then there's using ND filters. And there's reasons to use each one, and we'll probably talk a little bit about them as I go through the questions. But to understand high-speed sync, what essentially happens is, instead of the flash just firing one time, it fires really quickly multiple times. What this does is it basically allows the flash to be in synchronization as the shutter moves up across the image and expose it evenly. The downside to this is because the flash is firing so many times, it drains a lot of power. So you can't shoot it like really closed down apertures. But typically you're using high-speed sync because you want to shoot at a wide open aperture with a faster shutter, so it's really not an issue. It's a non-issue, I guess we should say. Okay, that's like the preamble here before we get into this. Hey, from Sweden. Sorry to do it so late. I have to work on my scheduling. Mexico. Oh, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Philippe. Patrick. Hello, guys. California. Oh, yes, there's a lot of issues with fires going on. I was actually just talking to some friends online. The that are over there. What do I think about using ND filter? We'll talk about that a little bit. Thanks, Jose. I hope you put that question on the video. So, I mean, yes, I'll answer any question you have since you're watching me here, of course. But if it's not obvious, the reason why I want you to put questions there is because the more interaction we have on this video in Adorama, the more it'll get pushed up in the searches, which does better for Adorama and does better for me since I'm one of the hosts. So please write the questions there as well. Does a flash use the same power both on and off? I'm not sure if I understand what that means. UK, all right. Oregon. I know it's not Oregon, it's Oregon. Poland. Welcome. Wow, okay, we got a little international thing going on here. Manhattan. Nice. Of course, right? Off and on camera. Does the flash use the same power off and on camera? Yeah, of course. Cool. All right, guys, so let's get into some of these. So I guess, because I know one of the questions is about the ND filter, so I just we'll go through it. So you're welcome to Daniel's life. So after I do one of these videos, I sit down, a couple times a day for the first week or so anyways, and I'll go back to it little by little. And I look to see what people have to say. I don't always get back to you right away because I don't know when the questions go live. Because of the YouTube's situation with spammers and everything else, everything gets held usually. So they have to release the questions before I can answer them. Okay. I feel like this is not loaded in all the way. Maybe it is. Why is there a dead spot down there? That doesn't seem right. Let me refresh this. You're looking at my screen. Commercial. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Skip. Add. All right, there I am. Looking all Daniel-y. All right, let's go down. I'm going to sort this here by newest to oldest, which is how I do it, so I can consistently look at them. Oh, maybe that was the first one. Wow. Very first comment. Does the Nikon Z5 support high-speed sync? I think so. I don't know. I mean, I have not got a Z5, however Seth does. So if your photos by Slusher, check out Last X Witness. He has a Z5. And actually, we'll have one tomorrow, so I can check it then. Let's see. Some of these are just easy. Good to see you back in the studio. Nice looking model. Yes, Farrah's very, very sweet. We are bringing her back soon, so you'll see some more with her. Lots of thank yous, which I really appreciate. By the way, if you feel like that it's a waste to write, hey, thank you, or I like this, these are super useful. Number one, because it shows Adorama that we have interaction, which is good for me. But also, it lets me know what people like. If people are writing, oh, I love this, then I know this is the kind of thing you guys want to see. Let's find one that's actually a question. What lenses I use? I use a 50mm. That's what I had. Okay, why use high-speed sync rather than an ND filter and a tripod? Okay, so the main... Okay, so hopefully I'll kind of briefly explain that technique, just in case people don't know. So one thing people did before high-speed sync was really common is, let's say that you were set up at your studio and you were set at 200th of a second, that was maximum sync speed, and you were set at, let's say, f8, because that's, you needed that to get rid of the light in the space, but you wanted to shoot at f1.2, or let's say f2, make my life easy. So what you would do is you could put a neutral density filter on the lens, right? Thus reducing the amount of light coming in, thus allowing you to open the lens up, right? Because you're killing the ambient light with a neutral density filter. And that works great, You could take I guess that's a 3-stop filter. Yeah, that's 3 stops. You put a 3-stop filter on there. You, of course, you'll have to give 3 stops more power to your flash at this point. So your flash is actually shooting 3 stops more than f8, so it's shooting 22, right? And then that all balances out to basically give you, well, that's if you want to stay at f8. I shouldn't have said it that way. You can do it 2 different ways. I don't want to confuse this. Let me roll back. You're at f8, 200th of a second. That gets rid of all the ambient light in the space. You're making a portrait. You want to shoot at f2. If you open up your lens to f2, the ambient light affects your shot. You don't want that. So you put ND filter on there, right? Which then means the camera needs more light. Thus, you can open up to f2. So then of course your flash drops down in power to f2 because the ambient light. The other way is if you want to do something else, which maybe we'll talk about in another video. So what we end up with there is essentially the same effect, right? A shallow depth of field by removing the ambient light. It still eats a lot of power because your flash is still throwing out those 3 extra stops of power to give you that f2 with the ND filter. So effectively, you're not gaining anything by doing that, except for the fact that if you have a camera that doesn't use high-speed sync, right? Or a flash system that doesn't use high-speed sync. The main reason why I don't use that system a lot is twofold. Number one, I'm not a big filter guy. I feel like unless you get the best filters, you're always going to risk degrading the quality of your image by putting a filter in front of your lens. So there's that, right? Forget about the fact that dust can get on the filter, smudges can get on the filter, just another thing to worry about. But also, it's not precise, right? It's precise in the sense that it's 3 stops, but with high-speed sync, I can literally tweak my shutter in thirds of a stop, so I have a lot more control. And I know somebody out there is starting to type really fast and saying, what about variable NDs? Variable NDs screw your color big time. They just do. They're just not good for color. Even the best of them, unless you're like kind of in the midpoint, as soon as you start adding a lot of ND to it, the color goes off the charts. So I'm not a big fan of that to do it while you're shooting, right? Because the thing is, sure, I could dial a lot of ND in and then fix, do a color target. But if I'm shooting somebody, it starts to change. I don't want to have to adjust the ND. It's just not going to work for me that way. That's why I don't go that way. I actually believe I did a video about using the ND. So, I mean, it's something you can do. If you don't have the ability to do high-speed sync, using an ND is a good idea. It just requires a little bit more math. It's a little bit slower, and doesn't give you as much room to wiggle. So that's the main reason why there. I wonder what I said there. Did I say something there, or did somebody else already answer? There's 4 answers. For me, the advantage if you have flash high-speed sync, you don't need the ND filters. Yep, that's obvious. Gavin posted a video about this. Oh, awesome. Oh, high-speed gets simpler. Yeah, okay, just what I just said. You have to have different levels of ND. I answered the same thing. Yay. At least I'm consistent. Hopefully that makes sense. Wow, we're going to come in from all over the place here. Learned earlier today that Ellen Chrome uses HS. Yes, yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. What camera settings are necessary to synchronize the second curtain? That depends on your camera system. In some cameras, you do it in the camera. In other ones, you do it on the flash. So, like, for instance, 2 cameras that I own, I have the Nikon Z6. When I want to do rear curtain sync, I have to do it in the camera. My Canon, on the other hand, my 1DX Mark II, you do it actually on the remote. So it depends on your system. No, I definitely were not shooting with the Z5. If I was, then I would know if it did high-speed sync. Central California. Oh, man, more fires. Oh, man. Whew. That's got to be scary. I'm sorry about that. Man, nature is scary. The other night, like 2 nights ago, I mean, I heard on the weather report there's going to be thunderstorms. But I woke up to this blasting lightning, and it had been really hot in New York lately, so this was a cooler day, so I left my windows open, and I could just hear the rain ripping sideways through my windows, under my porch, through my window, into my room with my computer in it. I ran in here and closed all the windows, and the floor was soaking wet. It's nuts, man. Nature. Hey, Eric. Okay. Let's see. I always wonder, since ND knocks 3 stops, slide across the board, isn't the same trade-off. Yes, exactly. I think people were using NDs a lot more before high-speed sync became common, because it is also another thing you got to think about. This is less of an issue with a mirrorless camera, but with an SLR camera, putting neutral density in front of your lens makes it harder to see through. It makes it darker, and it can actually come into, even with the mirrorless camera. Depending on your camera, cameras have a range at which their autofocus works. If you ever, this is like the specs that people don't even look at on cameras. But when you look at the autofocus specs for a camera, it will list an EV number. That EV is the minimum amount of light that it can actually autofocus in. You put ND in front of your lens, and assuming it's focusing through the lens, which most cameras do these days, it's going to make the autofocus possibly not work as well. So that's another reason about not using the NDs. Right. And you are in timeout there, Green. Boom. Yeah, man, crazy. All right, so anyways, that's that. More thank yous. Do I keep the cat? Oh, I keep the aperture constant? Yeah. I mean, usually when you're doing this, you're doing it because you want to keep the aperture constant. So if you're, I mean, the reason to do high-speed sync is to have a more wide open aperture. Okay, this person likes that I drew on there. My artistic ability is flawless. When you're in high-speed sync, if you drop the shutter speed, does it automatically change? Okay, I think I answered this here, but again, it depends on your camera. Like, for instance, I believe, now I'm trying to remember the last time I used high-speed sync with the Canon, but I'm pretty sure just like rear curtain, the high-speed sync is something you turn on in the flash with the Canon, on the remote, basically, whereas the Nikon, it does it internally. So it depends on your camera. If you go back under, it will, in fact, switch on the Nikon. Okay, here we go. High-speed sync is okay, but you can use an ND filter. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. This is a good one. I'm happy to have YouTube as a slowdown function. I'm probably talking fast again, guys. If I am, I apologize. Is there a level of modality for shoots in Airbnb versus actual studio? I mean, if I'm assuming this is a serious question, and if not, you're about to get banned. If you need a location, right? You could certainly shoot at a hotel or an Airbnb, or Airbnb probably makes sense, because you're essentially renting a house. When I did a lot of catalog work in Florida, we were constantly renting houses for the day for shoots. So that's equivalently the same as getting an Airbnb. So I don't see any problem with shooting in an Airbnb. As long as you're not a sleazebag, then it shouldn't matter. Let's see. Okay, well, here's a question I haven't answered. Oh, actually, that's probably Hey, Daniel, I shoot a lot on the beach at sunrise. Time using flash for the model. Most of the times I have the sun backlighting the scene. Very low over the horizon. That's nice. To keep sky dark, they use ND filters. Okay, that works. Right, I have to make white balance adjustments later. This is what I just said before. Do you think the high-speed sync technique would work fine under the conditions I mentioned? Thanks for your tutorial. Oh, from Mexico. Hey, Carlos, I'm just going to quickly answer this. Yes, color shift is common with NDs. Not so much with high-speed sync. Now, I'm saying not so much, guys, and you probably wonder why I answer questions like this. I don't know what gear Carlos is using. If he's using some brand that maybe isn't, top tier brand, it might color shift with high-speed sync. I know that Profoto does not. I should say it shifts, but it's consistent. So what I mean by that is when you go into high-speed sync, I find it's actually sometimes a little bit cooler. But at the same time, it's cool through the whole exposure, so you're not having like the weird, and through your whole shoot. Oh, that's probably also because I put it in the fast mode. Good information. Use it as not a gimmick. Yes, that's me. Welcome back. Yes, I am back. All right, Hypersync is much more usable than high-speed sync. Okay, so this I thought was going to be the main question here, and sure enough, it has been. So let's talk about that for a second. Oh, here's high-speed sync versus ND filter. So this must be what they're talking about. Gavin just did a video. Got a lot. It's a popular subject. So if you're curious about seeing a video, check out Mr. Gavin Hoy. Let's go back to the camera because you don't need to see that anymore. All right, I'm going to slow down a little bit, and I'm going to try to explain as simply as possible the difference between hypersync, as I understand it, I'm not a scientist, and high-speed sync, And I'll also wrap the whole thing up with the NDs, because I think those all fit into the same subject, right? Number one, all of these things are used when you have the following circumstance. It is a bright situation. You want to shoot with the aperture that is more open than you would be allowed with your normal shutter speed. Now notice I did not say you use high-speed sync or anything like that to stop action, because in fact, that is pretty much almost always the opposite. If you want to stop action, you really want to black the space out and use basically the flash duration. But that's, that's something different. High-speed sync, hypersync, and the NDs are really used when you're mixing light. Okay, so all that being said, let's talk about this for a second. I already talked about the NDs, and I'll talk about it one more time. If I'm in a situation, let's say I'm shooting at let's say I'm outside, right? I'm outside. It's near the end of the day. I'm getting a reading of f8 at 200th of a second, or maybe it's the winter. f8 at 200th of a second, 100 ISO. I'm out there with my flash. Maybe it's a busy area, or it's a park, and I want to have this like a color splash behind somebody. There's some flowers back there. I don't want them sharp in focus. So what I want to do is open up my aperture. But if I open up to f2, all of a sudden that would raise my shutter speed, right? If I open to f2 from f8, you're talking about 3 stops, which would mean that I would have to increase my shutter speed to just make the math even. I'm just going to say 250, not 200. And I'll have to raise it up to 2,000 of a second. So I can't do that, right? I can't do that and synchronize with my flash. Just if I have just a regular flash and whatever. So what I can do is keep my settings, my setting on the flash the same, my speed on the camera the same, my ISO, my shutter speed that is, and put ND in front of the lens. When I put ND in front of the lens, it will become dark. Then I can open the lens up, right? And my exposure remains, my natural light exposure remains proper. And now my flash exposure works with it. That's the idea of using the ND. Again, if you have NDs and you don't have the ability to do high-speed sync, it works perfectly fine. High-speed sync, which was what I used, again, pulsates the flash. So you've got this shutter moving, right? As the shutter moves past the subject, at each interval where it's open, the flash fires. So it's pulsing. Because of this, you're able to get an even exposure on the frame and shoot at a faster shutter speed. The downside is because the flash is pumping so much light out really quickly, it can't shoot that fast. I should say it can't shoot at super high power. So what ends up happening is you're still taxing your flash. Like you would think that, oh man, went from f8 to f2, I should be able to turn my flash down. No. In fact, you might even end up turning it up a little bit because of the way the high-speed sync works. In the case of the ND filter, your flash would remain at its same setting. Then we come into Hypersync. So Hypersync seems to be the ultimate, right? When you look at the ad for it, it's like, oh, Hypersync, yeah. Doesn't pulsate the flash. Can use all your power. Yeah, that's how it works. Hypersync is like this kind of really super precision sync thing that opens the shutter at kind of exactly the right moment, so they think, or so they say. The problem with Hypersync is that it generally ends up picking up what they call the tail of the flash as well to make the exposure. So what happens is when you shoot a flash off, like the light goes up to the max and then it goes down. And what it'll do is it'll go, shoo, I'll use my hand, so it goes, shoo, and then over the course of whatever, milliseconds, it then drifts back down. So imagine like, shoo, and then like a parachute coming down, right? That's your power. What ends up happening is at the low end over here, this is a slower flash duration. So what happens sometimes with Hypersync is that your flash duration will not be consistent throughout your image, and you won't be able to stop action as well. Now, that being said, of course, if your shutter speed is fast enough to stop the action, that's fine. But if your shutter speed is not fast enough to stop the action, this is especially going to be true in cases where like you're shooting at like maybe a 500th of a second or 800th of a second, so you're just barely cracking the speed. You might find that your subject is moving too fast to freeze it. So, I'm not a scientist. and I don't really use on a regular basis a flash that has Hypersync, but this is an issue with it. That being said, it's still in a lot of ways better than ND because, again, it's infinitely flexible and you don't have to have an extra piece of equipment to do it. If your flash can already do it and your camera can already do it, it's just a matter of throwing a switch. But it is important to understand that the shutter speed with your flash is effectively, your flash duration. So if your flash duration gets slow, it can make a situation where you don't freeze the action as well. So hopefully that made sense. Let me see if that made any sense as I'm explaining this. Do you lose power in the flash? Yes, basically. I think I answered that already. Right. Prefer leaf shutters, of course, right? So a leaf shutter basically can sync at any speed because the way a leaf shutter works is different. But, and there are a few exceptions to this, in many cases, leaf shutters do not have the same maximum shutter speed. So for instance, my Canon 1DX Mark II has a maximum shutter speed of 8,000th of a second. I can use high-speed sync and shoot at 8,000th of a second. Most cameras with leaf shutters do not go to 8,000th of a second, period. So, it's awesome. Yes, leaf shutter is definitely better if you can get it. Just tuned in. Not sure if it's been answered. What's the advantages of high-speed sync over manual? Well, you could be in manual or TTL with high-speed sync. Manual is just the way you're controlling the light. Cracking skulls today. Massachusetts, my home state. Is it on purpose that they came out, my video and Gavin's came out roughly at the same time? I'm going to say yes. No, actually it's not. I didn't realize that I don't think we realized that we were both putting on a very similar topic at the same time. Gavin's across the pond, as they say. Actually, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm going to watch it right after this. It looks really good. Is a white balance of 5,000 the best when you are using flash in the studio? The best would be to do a custom white balance once you have your exposure set. The second best, and usually, is to use something like, 6,000, 5,600. 5,000 is a little bit on the cooler side for most flashes. I have only shot in manual mode, but is there a camera priority that is most optimal to use? Manual. Or of course if you're using the reason why, okay, so if you were going to use an automatic mode, well, you could be in program automatic, of course, but you might put it in high-speed sync when let's say you're doing aperture priority. Because again, the reason for doing high-speed sync is because you want to shoot at a more wide-open aperture. So let's say I know I want to shoot it at 4 and my light's fluctuating. Sometimes it's 125th of a second, sometimes it's 500th of a second. I can set myself up in high-speed sync, and then I can continue to shoot it at 4 and let the camera pick the shutter speed, and I'll be totally fine. So probably aperture priority. I see lots of times people talk about shutter priority, but I can't say it's so rare that I ever shoot in shutter priority. I think it's probably the least used for me setting on the camera. Gavin's was promoted by Petapixel. Oh, awesome. Yeah, well, Gavin's the man. Let's see. Oh, it's a serious question. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see a problem with shooting. What do you mean? You're probably not. Let's hope that you're 100% not. To me, shooting an Airbnb seems completely reasonable. You just never know on the live streams. You get a lot of weird questions. In fact, I just blocked 2 people before you. That's probably why I was a little bit harsh there. I have a question regarding the use of light in fashion. Most of the covers I have seen model flatly lit. Well, I would say that probably depends on... there's a couple of reasons why you see... we'll say there's 3 reasons. 3 reasons why. Number 1, magazines do not, printing in general of a magazine does not have the dynamic range of like your screen, right? So if you're shooting for a magazine, you need to shoot a little bit flatter. Otherwise, you won't get detail. You literally need to shoot flatter. That's more of a technical thing. Second, most fashion magazines, depending on when you say that, I'm assuming that you mean things like Vogue or, the mainstream stuff in the U.S. Those, because those are the ones that are flat, because those are meant to be sold to people standing in line at drugstores. Look at some of the more like really beautifully quality printed European fashion magazines, the ones that are like come out quarterly that, are on thick paper and cost like $40. Those won't be so flat. And then I think the third reason, it just comes down to style. Sometimes there's times when flat lighting is in style. But yeah, remember that a cover of anything needs to attract the most people to look at it. So sometimes you'll see kind of a flat cover, and then you'll have the cool contrasty stuff inside, as well. But that is a good question. Would high-speed sync subject moving give you a subject multiple times in the image? No, definitely not. No, I'm going to say no. I can't. No. Maybe if they were moving really, 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 really fast. I can't say I've ever tested the upper limits of it, but I've had people jumping and dancing and doing all kinds of stuff, and it's never showed up multiple times. Because it's not really a multiple exposure. The only thing that might happen is what happens if you're out of sync, is that you might get an uneven exposure on them. Because remember, it's still one exposure. Your shutter's only opening one time. It's not opening more than once. So, theoretically, you could do like a pop and blur with high-speed sync, which would be really interesting. But you'd have to have a heck of a lot of ambient light. But no, they're not going to show up more than once. Let's see. Those questions have been asked yet. Sorry. Would I rather shoot with an ND filter? Wow, that's really floating around, huh? Who knew that was in the conscious of everybody, the ND filter thing? That's such an old technique. And I would say I'd rather use high-speed sync. Because in the end, it does the same thing, except the ND filter, you have to have filters, you got to worry about them being dirty, and you got to put them on. So, yeah. Now, when I say that, because if somebody just took a clip of that and put it somewhere, I'm not saying ND filters in general. I'm saying for this purpose. There are times where ND filters are really useful, especially to get long exposures, which is the opposite of what we're doing here, and also for graduated NDs for like getting skies balanced and stuff. I really should move this closer so I can see it. I need to watch both, but I haven't seen mine. Oh, great. Well, watch both videos. Is there a difference in black and white or color? No, definitely not. Yes, Vogue. Yeah, Vogue is flat. So, I'm about to get kind of weird fashion here. Everything in life is like this. Think about, I'm going to say, I bring everything to music. Think about music. The coolest, edgiest, funkiest, most experimental music is not pop music that's on the radio, right? Pop music is for the public. That's why it's called popular music, right? It basically is flattened. This is the same for your big commercial magazines. They're all flattened out. And in fact, unfortunately, big magazine publishers, I'll never work for a magazine again when I say it, ruin small magazines. Like there's been tons of really cool, funky magazines that have got bought up by the larger print giants, which granted they probably would have gone away if they hadn't been bought up because, the economy the way it is. But they flatten them out because they want them. They're homogenizing it. They're making it available so that everybody will like it. When everybody likes something, it's not good. Because it becomes the most boring thing in the world. The stuff that's edgy and has meat and has flavor is going to make people is not going to make everybody want it. That's actually a good sign that you're doing something creative, is that not everybody likes it. I say this a lot. You're doing well when people like your stuff, but you also have haters. Because that means you're doing something that's not so middle of the road that some people just don't like it. And that means you're doing something right, in my opinion. Maybe I just say that because, so I can justify my haters. Next time, show the difference. See, that is exactly, I'm sorry, but I feel like you maybe missed the point there, Chilla Z. The point of high-speed sync in that shot was to achieve the exact same shot as I could have got when it wasn't so bright out there. That's the thing, right? Because everybody looks at it like, oh, it's some kind of gimmick that's going to give me some special thing. What I wanted was it to look the way it would look when it wasn't so damn bright out there. I neutralized the brightness to get the windows the way I wanted them. And then at the end of the video, when I went back to regular speed, like, it looked the same. I literally put two shots next to each other, one high-speed sync, one not, that looked almost identical for a reason. You know? Yeah, I could go out on a super bright day and show you the giant softbox look outside that everybody loves to see. No, I don't use high-speed sync like that. That's gimmicky to me. So that's, to me, you can do what you want. But that wasn't the point. And maybe it went over that. Have I ever done a pop and blur video? I'm sure I have, many times. Ah, yeah, blur, right. ND filter for blurring water is good. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, even right, even in Europe. Yeah. So the thing is, I guess probably the middle of the road European magazines don't make it here. You know, so we don't see those. We only see the really luxurious ones. I always imagine, you know, I mean, of course, then when I go there, it's not the same. But you go to these like magazine shops in New York, and they have these like magazines from like, you know, all over Europe and all over the world, and you know, Japan and Australia, and they're these beautiful, thick, amazing magazines, almost like books. And you're like, wow, the magazines in other countries are so awesome. But then you realize those are just the best, most awesome ones, and that's why they brought them over. So there you go. Okay. Let's see what else. Ah, old radio poppers. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I got lots of haters. I have a lot. Please do a video where you explain the flash in multi and mask mode. Oh, well, multi-pop, you know what's funny about that? So mask, I don't know what mask is. I might have to look up to see exactly what you mean. I actually did a video with the new flashpoint light that is basically a Godox light in multi-pop, and they ended up not using it. I don't know what happened. They keep saying it came out, but I never saw it. I was like, okay. I mean, I got paid. Yeah. No worry, jealousy. I'm just saying that was like the point. I mean, sometimes it's not obvious. How am I doing overall? Whew. I am doing well. I mean, it's really interesting. You know, we adapt. You know, when this first happened, I immediately jumped into a different way of doing things. I was doing a lot of videos. I was walking around and doing like quick vloggy stuff. And that actually got really exhausting. And I was really not, I was anxious to shoot more, you know? So I kind of had to step back from that a little bit. But now I've restabilized. So you'll see a lot more from me. And we're finally able to start to shoot with people again, which makes me so much happier. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy product photography, but man, when you're producing a video to teach somebody product photography, so you're like in a place by yourself, shooting a video of yourself, shooting a product, it's not nearly as fun as when there's a model there. So, but yeah, I'll do a high-speed multi-pop video. Actually, if you look back on many of the live videos, like if you go on my channel here and you look for the playlist called Live Thursdays or something like that, or live events or live workshops, go back a bit to one. There's anyone that's called like Advanced Flash Photography. I think there's a couple of those on there. We always do multi-pops, but I could do a video just about it. I mean, I could do a multi-pop. It's just, that's more Seth's thing. And anybody who is a regular knows that Seth doesn't want me to steal his stuff because, you know, he gets all sad. Well, my picture frame is very cinematic. Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, partially that is because I can't get the camera anywhere else, so I always have this extra space over here. And I just turned off my background lights. I have some new color LEDs, so, but I thought I'd do this one more chill. I'm kind of in the window. Can I actually do this? No, look at the wrong one. There we go. Yeah, I had the. It's been so nice. I don't want to jinx it. It's so nice the weather in New York. I need to set up a screen here though, so I can see you guys better, so I don't keep leaning forward because I keep seeing my very bright head being lit up. Let's see. Oh, and also this light. I mean, actually, I've changed this since the first video I did about installing it. Maybe I'll do another quick one on Instagram or something. I've got a softbox here, and recently, like probably I don't know, maybe less than a month ago, I got a grid for it. So, because it used to be this wall was getting hit by light as well, so it was kind of flat. And I also used to have a fill light back there, but I have it turned off. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, ND is a good option. It's just, I mean, you know, if I had both, you know, and I think that's oftentimes how the question is framed. I mean, would I go out and buy a new system that had high-speed sync because I don't have it if I had NDs? No, definitely not. I mean, I think I probably use high-speed sync in practical terms, except unless I'm showing it to somebody. I probably use it maybe twice a year. It's just not something I use. So I definitely wouldn't do it. Most challenging sets for me right now? I mean, I'm chilling. It's easy. It's kind of a little bit. I'm fully embracing this whole like shooting from my house bloggy setup. In fact, I just ordered 2 more cameras from Nikon, so we'll see what happens there. So I'm gonna get more into this setup eventually. Maybe if you guys are interested in the, I'm still on the lookout. If somebody has a suggestion, I'm looking for a monitor, and I'm being cheap. I should just buy the damn LG that has USB-C that can power my MacBook. I need 85 watts. So, because I just want to have one cable. I have so many cables here. If I had the choice in the studio, would the final picture quality benefit from darkening the space or using high-speed sync? Darkening the space, 100%. I would not use high-speed sync unless you need to. If you're in a studio and you want to eliminate all the light in the space, that's what you should do first. I mean, if you notice, whenever I do my live streams, I block the windows and close all the blinds, you know, as best I can. I hardly ever go on high-speed sync. High-speed sync taxes your flash, and it will eventually burn out your flash tubes as well. You got to think about this as an investment. Let's see. Just woke up from a nap. Man, yeah. I do like that I can nap in the middle of the day occasionally. Yeah, the X1D was not mine. And the thing is that, so people are talking about the Hasselblad X1D. That has a really fast sync. I don't think it has a leaf shutter. I think it's just a fast sync. It's like 2,000th of a second. It's crazy. Yeah. I was about to get it. Like I was making a deal, and then they came out with the 2. And I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, like, life happened. I had to spend money on other things, and then, you know, now we are where we are. And buying Hasselblad, where I'm basically haven't shot much in the last 4 or 5, 6 months, is not a good investment for me. EZO monitors, huh? The question, I'll look, because EZOs are actually really good. Actually, at one point, they wanted to send me a monitor. I try not to take free stuff. I don't want to make that sound like send me a monitor, because then they expect you to say something good about it. So, and I'm notorious about not saying good things about things. Although, you know what I am going to do? Data Spider sent me is sending me a spider. They asked me if I wanted to try it, and if I would do a quick little overview, and I'll do that because I think that's kind of cool. So if you guys are interested in color syncing screens and stuff, I'm gonna do a video about that coming up. BenQ's only 60. I know, and the thing is, if you're gonna spend all that money, I really want that 80. BenQ has one that has 100, but the monitor is like, it's expensive. It's like $1,500-$1,600, so it just feels like a lot when I don't need it. So I have this. I have the Apple Thunderbolt display, the old one, which is like maybe from like 2015. This thing is great, like for color and stuff. But like I can't show you clearly because I'm kind of plugged in. But I have it adapted Thunderbolt to USB-C, so it's like wasting up a spot. And then it has Thunderbolt, of course, but I have nothing that's Thunderbolt. And then it has USB 2 in the back, so it's like everything has to be plugged in directly to my laptop, which is kind of a pain. Again, first world problems, as they say. Are there any meters that can expose? Yes, indeed, they can. The Sekonic. Ask that. Watch the live stream on Adorama tomorrow and ask me that again, because I'll pull out the meter and show it to you. But the Sekonic, actually, I can look it up, I guess. I always forget the numbers of these meters. I feel so bad. Sekonic. Yeah, the 858. That's the one that I have with the digital screen. That has the ability to read high-speed sync. I believe that the 478 does as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But the 858 definitely can read high-speed sync. And I did indeed test it. It's a little bit weird to test because when you especially with the Nikon anyways, when you if you have the remote, like Pro Photo remote on top of your camera, and you just press the test button, it doesn't actually fire in high-speed sync because we talked about this earlier with the Nikon. It only goes into high-speed sync mode when you're shooting at a high shutter speed. So in order to actually test the meter, it took me a few times to make it work, I actually had to take a picture of the meter. But it did work, though. X-Rite's been good, yeah. I mean, X-Rite's definitely a good... Kodak flashes have a lot of bells and whistles. So, I mean, I'm contractually obligated not to say anything negative about Kodaks, or else the whole internet will come and punch me in the face. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, people like Kodaks. I actually have a video coming up about this exact subject, but I will just touch on it by saying this. I don't have a problem. I think that there's many brands that come out that have cool features and that seem to be very good. However, it is more just like you as a photographer. So imagine this. You have a job. You're an advertising agency. And you have this shot. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. You only have one opportunity to make it. And you can hire a photographer that has a lot of experience, that's got tons of advertising jobs under their belt, that's really skilled, has a great crew. Or you can hire this new guy that's been around a couple of years, but yeah, he hasn't done as much, but it seems like when you put their images next to each other, they look exactly the same. Your job's on the line. Who do you hire? Right? You're almost always going to go for the person with more experience, assuming you can afford them. And there's a reason why. So, yeah, there's lots of good gear, and I think it's probably fine, but would I risk my career on something that's not really proven, with 20, 30 years behind it? Probably not. Which is one of the main reasons, too, and I'm now going to get blasted when I say this, that I don't shoot Sony. Like, Sony's great, but I would not risk my career on a Sony camera for stills because I don't trust. I mean, they've only been out like less than 10 years kicking butt, and they are kicking butt. But no, I go for and maybe I'm wrong, but, and actually they're proving themselves. Maybe in another 2-3 years I'd consider it. But currently, like, man, even if they have more features and stuff, I know that I can rely on certain brands like Nikon. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, I mean, lots of people have lots of great things to say about Kodak, so I don't think it's a bad thing. If that's the budget you have, you should get what you can get. Huh. Suggest to have about a Synchronize trigger for Pro Photo? I could suggest that. I have a very strong feeling that might not happen, though, because there's a lot of politics that go on in manufacturing, and I'm not going to get into it. It's not my place, but I'm not sure that Sekonic and Profoto would be buddy-buddy. Oh, they're working on it. Well, there you go. So maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, and that will happen too. And you know what's funny about that? So you had a cheap Godox thing that broke, blah, blah. I've heard a lot of stories like that. And I'm not saying that means the Godox is crap. In fact, I have heard stories where people got premium equipment that came broken. So it can happen with any piece of equipment. So I wouldn't necessarily rate them out. I look more like longevity. Like when I used to do a lot of gear tests, like for Adorama, whenever a manufacturer would give me a piece of gear, they'd be like, here, can you do something with this? The first thing I would say to them is, can I break it? And if they hesitated for 1 second, I didn't trust that brand. Because if you're not giving me the right to do whatever I can to make this thing really do the things that it says it can do, then I don't trust it. And good on you, Olympus. Olympus action cams let us do everything with their cameras. We dropped them from heights higher than they said that you could drop them. We froze one in a block of ice and it still worked. Because their specs said you could do it. And I was like, well, your specs say this can be frozen in ice and still work. I'm just looking at the time because I actually have some. And it worked, you know? So good on you, Olympus. And no other action cam allowed me to do that, even though they all said they could do it. They were like, well, this is our only sample and blah, blah. Okay. Elonchrom's also good, but they, you know... There is a setting in the remote that you can set if you have the lights are closer. Oh, interesting. Hey, Daniel, you thinking about moving to mirrorless anytime soon? I think some of the Nikon Zs you use belong to Seth. Yeah, Seth would like you to believe that, wouldn't he? I owned a Nikon mirrorless before Seth did. Long before Seth did. Yeah, I did use his one of his Z50s and the Z7, which was not his. They were both borrowed from Nikon. Gavin does use Flashpoint all the time. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Right, exactly. So there's a lot of points. And again, I think with this, and I talk about this a little bit in this video that's coming up, where I talk about why I use the brands I do, and so this maybe it's interesting for people. And I'll touch on it again here. You have to understand when somebody tells you a piece of equipment is good or bad, or they use it or they don't use it, you have to look at who that person is. And I don't mean that they're more or less reputable by what they do. What I mean is, what do they have to lose if that piece of equipment fails them? Because that is a huge, huge thing. Like I used to tell people all the time when I was in Adorama and I started the lighting department there, and back then when radio triggers were crazy, like Pocket Wizards were unquestionably the most reliable radio triggers. They were the pro ones. It was before they came out with the X, and they were very expensive. People thought they were like, I think like $200 a piece, so $400 to get into two of them. And then there was like house brand triggers that were like $30. And somebody would come to me and be like, well, I'm a wedding photographer. What do you think I should buy? And I would say, listen, if you're making photos where if the flash doesn't fire even one time that day, it could be epically terrible for you, spend the money. If you're a hobbyist and the flash doesn't fire half the time, it doesn't matter, buy the cheapest thing. Who cares? And of course, everything's somewhere in the middle, right? Because the most famous quote that I ever got from anybody that I keep talking to, and this is something people say to me all the time, they go, oh, it's unreliable? Well, how often does it not fire? That's the definition of unreliable. Unreliable is it works flawlessly for 6 months till you have that CAO for 5 minutes and then it doesn't work. That's unreliable. And that's what you pay for with higher end brands. So there you go. And again, I use and have used many inexpensive things. I'm not saying that you have to buy the best gear, but I'm just saying that's the reason why certain people will say, I use this, I don't use this. And that's really it. And sometimes it comes down to a goof. Like you use something one time and it failed on you. And it might be the best thing in the world, but it just failed on you. You're not going to trust it. So again, weigh all that stuff. Oh, okay. So it is only that one that measures that. To be honest, I feel like, and I'd love to have somebody, maybe I'll ask Ab about this. I think measuring high-speed sync is cool, but at the same time, I'm not sure it's something that I think is that needed. I mean, I can't imagine that, but then again, I don't use high-speed sync that much. Oh yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes, if you don't mind hitting thumbs up, that would be fantastic, because then the YouTube world will know that I'm doing something here. Using Godox flashes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that, I mean, in today's world, and this is not to bash pocket wizards, I have my pocket wizard multi-maxes and I use them all the time. I think that's less of a thing. I feel like even your less expensive radio triggers are better than they used to be. And especially if you get ones that are made with a certain brand. Like, they're gonna work better, right? It's like when people would say to me, hey, should I get this whatever version of flash for my Canon? If you can afford it, I would get the Canon flash. Things that are made to work together will just work together better. The Godox stuff will probably work better with the Godox trigger than they will with Pocket Wizard. Probably, you know? I mean, that's my guess and my experience. All right. See you, Kurt. I'm going to wind out too. Yes, I have had bad experiences with Sony, so that's probably also what tarnishes my... By the way, I'm going to give you... This is the first time I've ever said this publicly, I believe. And I will say it right now, and this is one reason why you see me sometimes bash Sony, is because their reps back in the day had the worst attitudes. I was going to teach a class for Adorama during like one of these like workshop weeks that we had, and I was doing some street photography in between, and I was carrying my Fuji X100 around my neck and taking some street photography. It's my camera. I own it. Right? I'm just walking in. I walk in, and the guy sees me from across the room. He yells at me. He goes, "Why don't you use a real camera like this Sony? This has blah, blah," and named all these stupid features that Sony has. And I looked at this guy, and I was like, huh? Did you literally just do that to me? And this is exactly the same thing. That turned me off from them from the beginning. It was like, these people are so cocky. I still love the X100 better than any Sony I've ever used. So, eat it, Sony. But that being said, Sonys are cheap, so they're good for video. And they're good throwaway cameras. And also that new 7S seems pretty neat for video. Yeah, also about support. That's absolutely true. Let's see. Oh yeah, 100%. That's the thing. You don't always. So when you start out, you don't always have the budget. Well, first of all, anybody who says to me, "I'm just starting out, I don't have the budget for good lights," I want you to quickly take a look at your camera bag. If the contents of your camera bag is worth more than twice what your flash equipment is, you went the wrong way. I'm sorry, you went the wrong way if you're a commercial photographer. Unless you're somebody that only shoots outside available light, you would be much better off with good quality flash equipment than you would with the latest, greatest camera. I know cameras are sexy, but the reality is that most of the time, for commercial work, you're not shooting super wide open. You're not, shooting 85,000 frames per second. These just aren't things that you do in normal commercial photography. Lighting is everything. Lighting is photography. So too many times people have come to me and been like, yeah, I started my studio. I bought, the latest 5D. I bought the 4 different L lenses. I bought this. Oh, I have a $700 budget for lights. Well, good luck. You're going to be shooting a lot with natural light. So that being said, yeah, when I was first out of school and I didn't have money, I didn't buy ProPhoto. Can't afford that. my first lights were Novatrons, and they were terrible, you know? I mean, actually, I would say that they're probably better than most of the cheap lights are now. They're also way more expensive. I think I had two 400 packs and three heads, and it cost me like about $1,900, right? Which basically meant I had two heads, because, you know, I mean, you could use their head sometimes. And I never ever used them for a big real job. I always rented, which is what I think everybody should do if you are using inexpensive lights in your normal business and you get hired to do this a very good high-end job. I would consider renting something. That'd be my advice there. You're gentle on your equipment. Yeah, I guess. I'm not sure that's as big of a deal. Doubles and triples. Yep, I've heard that excuse too. I love that too. And by the way, you sound exactly like my father with computers. And of course, now Apple's going through a bad phase, so I shouldn't use it. But my father was always this PC guy. He's like, "Oh, they're so much cheaper. Your iMac is so expensive." And I was like, "Buy an iMac, Dad. It's like $1,500. Just buy it. You'll have it forever." No. He went through like 5 computers in the lifespan of my iMac, and it cost him more than double what I did over that course, because it was like, "Oh, this is only $300. Oh, this is only $600." Yeah, mine was only $1,500, and it lasts me 10 years. So yeah, cheap equipment, blah blah. I gotcha. You can use all the excuses in the world. I've heard them all. Use Sony. That's okay. You can use Sony. I mean, I have Sony cameras. I just don't use them for stills. No, whatever. Good job on it. Nightbot. Yeah, that's the thing. It's only because you guys are chatting so much. Stop chatting so much. That's supposed to greet new people when they come in. I might have to spread them out because I didn't know we'd have so much chat. You guys are killing it. That's cool. Yeah. 7 years ago, my friend was using a Pentax, I think K7. He was shooting weddings with it, actually. And it was a crop camera, right? Cheap crop camera. He went camping, and he left it outside and forgot it was there for 2 days in the rain. It was 100% fine. So saying your camera can be left in the rain is not impressive to me, especially not that expensive of a camera. Would you recommend or rely on used high-end gear? Yes, I would. And the reason why, one thing that makes things professional or high-end is that it can be repaired. Think about it like this. If you have a piece of equipment, and I'm just trying to enlighten you on why I think this way, and I will make a regular video that has all these thoughts. If you think about a piece of equipment in the sense that, well, if it goes down, I'll just get another one, that doesn't seem like the right way to think about things in business for me. Everything that I buy can be repaired, can be upgraded, can move me forward. They're things that add to my business, right? If I buy something that's throwaway, it's certainly not my lighting or my camera. You know, I mean, that. Although sometimes I do buy throwaway lights, but that's a whole other thing. Using codecs is difficult to have flashes that are more expensive than what? Yeah, well. So you're saying for my Nikon camera, I'm better off with Nikon flash? Yeah, I mean, for on-camera flash, I would say so, yeah. I mean, it's going to operate more reliable. Then, I mean, short of that, maybe like an A1, which is what I have, would be good. But I'm talking about like the one that looks just like the Nikon one that's half the price. You know what I'm talking about. As far as the Nikon flash versus the off-brand flash. It's like, I'd rather buy a used Nikon 5000 or whatever the flash is now than that off-brand version that looks just like the Nikon, because I know that Nikon's probably going to actually last longer and work better with my equipment. Cheap lights from the early 2000s? Oh, got to be Alien B. Or Paul Buff. Those are the worst. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I agree. Apple went. What's funny about Apple is they kind of went full circle. I'll start talking about computers for 1 second, then I'm out. So when I first got into Macintosh, Apple, this was a long time ago. They were super hard to upgrade, especially the PowerBooks. You had to buy like special screwdrivers that were like hard to get. I mean, there was no Amazon back then. I mean, to put like RAM into it, like they just didn't want you to do it. It was like very hard to like upgrade your computers. I'm kind of geeky and I figured out and I did my own, but man, if you open that thing and it did not work out, you were screwed. Like Apple was not helping you. Then they went into this mode where they're like, no, you can upgrade everything. And they like opened up the whole world where you can get into it super easy. And now they're back to can't upgrade. I think that they're doing it for a very specific reason, which I mean, obviously part of it's about money, of course. But I think also just they're trying to roll back the compatibility thing because that was really Apple's strong point. Even though they were expensive, there weren't a lot of third-party people making stuff for them because they were so stringent on what went into their computers. And I think they let that slide a little bit, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I hate that I can't upgrade my laptop. But at the same time, I'm going on 5 years with this now, 4 or 5 years with it, and it still handles all the latest software without blinking an eye. So I am going to build a PC, though, for streaming. So we'll see how that works out. 8600B, is that an alien bee? Yeah, thanks, guys. Sorry I was ranting a little bit about lights, but I think that again, part of the problem is that you're looking at, you have to look at things like, okay, so when I was coming up, like the photographers that besides other assistants like me that were broke, that I dealt with all had really high-end gear. And it was because it was an investment, and that's how they looked at it. And I think that that's how I continue to look at my equipment. If you are a hobbyist, if you don't plan on ever doing something commercially with it, you would be silly to buy super high-end gear unless you just have extra income. I mean, why would you ever do that? You're paying for the reliability that you don't need. If it was me and if I was never going to shoot commercially, I would certainly buy inexpensive lights and then buy myself a nice Leica because I would love to spend the money on the Leica. But instead, I buy cheaper cameras and better lights because I know that in a commercial situation, those lights are what really make the shot, not the cameras. So, and you can always rent a light, of course. I mean, a camera. Yeah, I'll definitely do a PC build stream. I started looking into it. It's actually super interesting. Because I am a closet geek, maybe not so closeted. And it seems so easy and so cheap to build them now. But what I'm learning is that power supplies are on, it's harder to get power supplies. So I got to make sure I know everything I need before I move into it because I don't want to get the computer all ready and then not be able to get the power supply I need. So I'm looking at that. But part of it is because I want to push heavy graphics. There may be, I want to do a lot more streaming. I mean, I think you guys are going to see me stream a lot more. So hopefully that's cool. And we'll see how that goes. If people have knowledge about PCs and want to jump in, maybe we'll do maybe I'll go on to unfortunately, I don't think Adorama really sells the parts, so we can't do it through them, but maybe I'll jump onto one of these PC build websites and try to build something. We'll do it live maybe. Just couldn't put the parts together. I'll get you guys input. Yeah, there was no Apple viruses as well. Yeah. That's the other thing. Apple wasn't being... Apple basically did that thing we were just talking about earlier where Vogue is boring because it's the middle of the road. Apple became cool and normal, and a lot of people use Apple. I mean, I remember there was a time where I knew maybe 5 people out of 100 that had an Apple computer. Now I would say almost half do, or have at some point, and then maybe switched over. I mean, people that you would have never bought an Apple before. Because they are, even though they're still more expensive on some level, they're still way cheaper than they were. I mean, oh my God. I don't even want to tell you, my Power Mac, that blue one with the weird case that came up in the air, was one of the early upgradable ones. Oh my God, was that expensive? Wow, was that expensive? And back then, you needed a graphics card. Maybe you can do it in PC now too. I haven't used anything but a laptop in so long. You needed a graphics card for every monitor. So I had 2 monitors, so I had 2 graphic cards. It was a whole, this thing I can plug a bunch of monitors into it, never blink an eye. You built yours twice over. Should I go for sRGB or RGB screen for photo editing? RGB, Adobe RGB for sure. Oh, okay. Drew's saying sRGB. So this is the reason why I would. Okay, I guess I shouldn't have been so quick to say RGB. The reason why I would go with sRGB is if you are only delivering to web to people that are going to put stuff on the web. If you're fully an online producer, then yeah, sRGB is probably better. You want, if you're going to print, I still think Adobe RGB has a deeper color palette. If I'm not, I'm not you're a graphic designer and you got inspired to start shooting. Oh, that's awesome. Late age of 26? That's not late at all. That's awesome. I'm curious why you say sRGB, Drew. So maybe we'll have a discussion about that because you may have a better feel on me than that. I do know this, that I use RGB and then I always have to change stuff to sRGB to give them to people. So maybe it's just easier. $5 years of that upgrade, and that's awesome. That is cool. I mean, yeah, I think if you're building your PC, you're on a completely different level than, I'm assuming you're replying back to my father, who was buying the, Black Friday, whatever laptop was the cheapest computer, I will say this. I'm obsessed with the idea of Chromebooks, but they're just so limiting that I just can't. Sorry, age 46. Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of actually pretty well-known photographers started later in life. 26 is not bad. I wasn't shooting. That's about when I started shooting professionally. Yeah, exactly. Chilizzy, that's exactly what I was saying. Deliver an sRGB. Yeah, I mean, having an sRGB monitor, maybe if you had a second monitor that was sRGB to kind of see it, but even then you shouldn't really need that. So yeah, I'm not sure what your thoughts are there, Drew. If you don't reply back soon, though, I'm going to have to go, so we'll have to hear it next time. But that's super interesting. I'm far from a monitor expert, that's for sure. Like I say, I generally just buy the Apple stuff because I know it works. It's like anything else; it works together. But I'm not going to spend a bunch of money on another Mac just to stream. That would just seem silly. But yeah, 100% though, what Chilizzy is saying, if you guys don't know this already, definitely deliver an sRGB. I can't tell you the number of photographers that I've had to tell that after they complain that people use their images on Instagram or whatever and they look terrible. They're like, they did something to my image. They didn't do anything to your image. You gave it to them in Adobe RGB and they didn't have the ability to deal with it. It's going up in sRGB. Oh. Okay. Oh, that's cool. So you shoot in sRGB color space. Oh, that's fascinating. I'll have to, well, when I get the spider thing, I'll be doing a little more of a deep delve into this, so we'll see. It's been a while since I've had to deal with this. How old am I? I'm not a woman, so you can, how do you know I'm not a woman? Must be the hair. I am, oh my God, what year is it? I am 48. Right. Yeah, what I think just in generally about this, since that came up and I really should go, but I can't never stop talking. I think when you think about age or anything like that, it's like, and this happened to me when I was young as well. Say I started really shooting and getting into photography full time. I quit my real job and I made photography my business. I mean, I was probably still assisting at 26, but what I realized was that what I was saying earlier, more experienced photographers, oftentimes referred to as older photographers because it just works that way, seem to get the good jobs, and the younger guys, even though they seemed more creative on a lot of levels, did not. And what I realized was that, right, it takes time. So if you're just starting out, you're in your 20s, kick butt, do all the jobs you can, and the big jobs will come. So don't feel like you're too young to start or too old to start. What you want to have is a repertoire behind you, and you want to still be young enough to enjoy it. I can't shed hair. I'm like, oh, well, okay. I guess that's, your mom must be a very attractive lady. I actually really need a haircut. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, what's interesting too is that a lot of photographers get into it later. Oh, Seth, question mark, tomorrow. Oh, Seth's bothering me. All right, I gotta go. All right, guys, I gotta get ready for my shoot for tomorrow. I have to chat with Seth, but thank you for watching. If you don't know, I'll be live on Adorama tomorrow at 5 Eastern. We're doing, I have Erica coming. It's been a while. She's been in back home during the COVID thing. She's back to New York. So we'll have Erica come in, and we're going to do sculpting light, which should be really nice because she has a great face for that. Really, really great. So what I will say is join me tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys. I always appreciate you guys tuning in. If this is the kind of thing, because I'm logging off, so put a comment below if I don't see it right now. If you want to see me talk about these on-set videos after the fact like this, if this was interesting to you and it worked, let me know, because maybe I'll make it a thing. You know, I definitely like talking about them. I feel like after I shoot them, I always think of things I wish I had said. So this could be a good way for me to do that. So let's see if I can figure out how to end this thing. I thank you all so much.